stand, if you're mirroring me with your right leg forward, your left leg back, it's a kind of bow stance. Just imagine that there is maybe a circular tabletop in front of you. And here you're just going to do this with the palms down to start with. So it's like you're running your hands over the surface of this circular table. And you could do the circling either way, but if your right foot is forward, why don't we have the hands circling clockwise as you look down? So if you're mirroring me and your right leg is forward, you're circling clockwise. And there's a little bit of movement of the hips and shifting of the weight here. Let's slow it down a little bit. So as the hands come forward from your left to your right, you shift the hips forward a bit. As the hands come back, you shift the hips back. Just kind of rubbing this tabletop in front of you, or this imaginary circular plane. And there's some hip shifting here as you do it. You're shifting the weight forward and you're shifting it back. It doesn't have to be very much. You're shifting maybe 60% of the weight forward and then 60% of the way in the back leg. And then let's begin just to kind of swirl the hands like you're stirring inside a pot now. You have a big cauldron. Now, here, you could just do it however you want to do it. But here, begin maybe by noticing the feeling of the fingers kind of stirring in this imaginary liquid. And then imagine that the movement is beginning with the wrists. And the hands and the fingers are kind of flowing behind. And then maybe bring it up to the elbows. So the elbows, both elbows are kind of circling in horizontal circles, and the wrists are following the elbows as the forearms kind of flow behind. And then the fingers are following the wrists. And if that doesn't feel like that's happening in any particularly strong way, that's okay. Just form the intention. And then bring it up to the shoulders. So the shoulders are circling. They might even be doing kind of small circles here. And then the wrists are kind of flowing. The elbows are flowing behind the shoulders, and then the wrists and the fingertips. And then drop down the beginning of the movement to the height of the heart. So the heart is making kind of small circles probably. And the shoulders are following the heart. And then the elbows and the wrists and the fingertips. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And then see if you can drop it down to the space behind the navel. So the space between the navel and the mingmen, that is between the navel and the point on your spine, directly opposite the navel, that's where it's coming from. You're stirring from here, and everything else kind of flowing up the body through the heart into the shoulders, and then curving down through the elbows and the wrists and the fingers. And then as you do this, like one way to make that kind of happen is just to pay attention to it as if like there's some inertia. I guess there is inertia, right? But as if like the stirring of what's in this imaginary cauldron, there's like significant weight to the fluid. And so you begin, maybe if you think about beginning in the space behind your navel, that starts, and all the rest of the stuff kind of flows, maybe even kind of drags a little bit behind it. Not in a heavy way, but you just, like if you had like a really heavy towel and you were sitting by the side of a pool and you were just kind of letting the towel kind of drag in the water, making circles with it. And you could feel the pull through the towel to the end, right? It's like you're causing these circular waves at the end of it. And if all that seems a little bit much, just stir the cauldron. Just stir the cauldron. Now, we're going to switch sides. So bring your left foot forward. If you're mirroring, you can stir the other way. As you look down at the hands, you're stirring counterclockwise. And a little bit of shifting of the hips. Let the rhythm of your breath just be whatever it wants to be. You don't have to try to bring it into phase with the movements here. stirring in the cauldron. Eyes can either be opened or closed. If you feel stable, you can close the eyes. You can follow the fingers of the eyes, or you can just kind of look around like I often wind up doing. Not because I'm not paying attention, but the focus is on other things other than what it looks like, I guess. So the fingers are stirring the water. I guess we could, let's go to the horizontal plane first, like we did before. Kind of just rubbing the surface of this smooth tabletop. And then even here, if you like, could just have that movement originating in space behind the navel, like we practiced before. And it's kind of coming up through the heart, like the heart circles, but it follows ever so slightly behind the circling of the space at the dantian between your navel and the mingmen. And then the shoulders kind of follow a fraction of a second behind, like a train, right? Like, so the engine is in the space between the navel and the mingmen, and the kind of odd set of tracks, right, to be spiraling like this, but I just use the metaphor for what you can. And the engine moves, and then the next car and the train kind of follows a fraction of a second behind as it gets moving. And then it goes to the next car, shoulders, and then down to the elbows and the wrists, and the fingers. And then, if you like, you can just kind of bring it in like you're stirring. Kind of the fingers flow, like you're imagining stirring this liquid. Stirring around. And you could do this longer if you like, but you might just try making the movements a little bit smaller, but seeing if you can just invite in the experience of that kind of flowing feel in the space behind the navel, kind of up through the body, and then down along the arms to the fingertips. If it doesn't come naturally, you can just make the circles big. It's all just experimenting and play. You're gonna let that go. Let's come right